I don't come into any fight with any other mindset than to just kick it.
Brock Lesnar has always been brutally honest about fighting, about wrestling, about life, and now, in one of his rarest and most revealing moments, he's finally opened up about why so many WWE wrestlers can't stand Hulk Hogan. What exactly did Hogan do to earn all that heat? The answer might just change the way you see him. Let's get into it. The Beast Incarnate's shocking revelation. For years, wrestling fans have picked up on the tension between Hulk Hogan and other WWE superstars. There have been whispers from the locker room, awkward moments in interviews, and icy glares caught on camera, just enough to make fans wonder what's the real story behind all this animosity. Well now, thanks to Brock Lesnar, we're finally getting a clearer picture of why so many wrestlers feel real resentment, even outright disgust toward Hulk Hogan. But before we dive into Brock's revelation, it's important to understand that he's far from the only one speaking out. The backlash against Hogan isn't isolated, it's widespread. In fact, the number of respected figures who've called him out makes it clear. This isn't just beef, it's a reputation problem. One of the most respected voices in the business, The Undertaker, has been remarkably candid about the kind of damage Hulk and certain wrestlers can bring to a company. And when it comes to those with toxic reputations, he didn't mince words about their destructive impact.
So how do you handle NWO in particular? You're talking about three guys that came over from WCW that undeniably were a cancer in the locker room. I mean, that organization went down, died, essentially because the egos in a lot of ways were too big.
Yeah, that's true. And those guys came in with a huge rap on them. You know, I mean, I dealt with them all before in their previous stints here. So, and I'd be lying if I told you I didn't have my reservations about them coming in.
The Undertaker's use of the word cancer to describe these wrestlers isn't hyperbole. It's a precise description of how toxic behavior spreads through wrestling organizations, destroying everything it touches.
Just because of what happened down there. Now, I wasn't there, but, hearsay, and and the people that had already come up before those guys, they had their opinions of, how they were doing things. So, they're back to the dressing room, and as many young guys that we have, I had a lot of reservations about, okay, this element coming in and, influencing our younger talent and making bad decisions but so far those guys have been fine,
But you'll keep an eye on them, right?
No doubt.
Okay.
While The Undertaker never names Hogan directly, fans know the history. And when he describes the kind of ego that kills a locker room, it lines up with stories wrestlers have told about Hogan for decades. According to Lesnar, one of the biggest reasons wrestlers resent Hogan is his alleged backstage politics. He reportedly used his influence to protect his spot at the top, often at the expense of other wrestlers trying to rise. The most documented example of this destructive behavior occurred at one of WCW's most important events. At WCW Starrcade 1997, Hogan reportedly refused to lose cleanly to Sting, a decision that many saw as selfish and detrimental to the storyline. This wasn't just about protecting his character, it was about systematically undermining the entire WCW product and damaging Sting's career-defining moment. Hogan's reluctance to put over other wrestlers, allowing them to win to elevate their careers, is another major point of contention, with evidence suggesting he spent years having other stars elevate him but rarely reciprocating. This systematic refusal to help develop new talent goes against wrestling's most fundamental principle, that established stars have a responsibility to create the next generation of performers. One particularly egregious example was Hogan faking a neck injury after The Undertaker's tombstone at Survivor Series 1991, which ruined the moment for younger talents and further fueled resentment. This incident is especially significant because it involves The Undertaker, one of wrestling's most respected figures. The Undertaker himself refuted Hogan's claim about injuring his neck during their 1991 match, stating he watched the tape and found no injury, calling Hogan out for lying. When someone of The Undertaker's stature publicly contradicts Hogan's version of events, it speaks volumes about Hogan's credibility and character. But perhaps the most damaging aspect of Hogan's legacy was his systematic betrayal of his fellow wrestlers' collective interests. According to allegations, Hogan informed Vince McMahon about Jesse Ventura's unionization efforts before WrestleMania 2 in 1987, leading to its failure. This betrayal had consequences that extended far beyond individual careers. A successful wrestlers' union could have provided better working conditions, healthcare benefits, and fair compensation for all wrestlers. Instead, Hogan's decision to side with management helped maintain a system that continued to exploit performers for decades. Financial records from WrestleMania 3 show Hogan was paid more than the rest of the locker room combined, including Andre the Giant, further highlighting the disparity. This massive pay disparity wasn't just about money. It was about a system that concentrated concentrated wealth while leaving other wrestlers struggling. Hogan's actions in WCW from 1994 to 1998, such as not making money in the first 2 years, destroying Vader's status in 1995, and canceling pushes for stars like Steve Austin and Mick Foley, are cited as detrimental to the industry. The fact that future superstars like Austin and Foley had their early pushes canceled due to Hogan's interference shows how his selfishness affected wrestling's future, and that's what made him a natural rival for Brock Lesnar. The beef between Lesnar and Hogan goes way back. Their tension wasn't just about storylines, it was personal from day one. Their first significant encounter came during Lesnar's rookie year in WWE, and it set the tone, established the dynamic, and created the foundation for everything that would follow between these two very different men. On August 8, 2002, Lesnar insulted Hogan on his WWE debut, leading to a match on SmackDown where Lesnar won by knockout using a steel chair on Hogan. But this wasn't just a typical wrestling storyline designed to generate heat and sell tickets. There was something more genuine, more personal, more authentic about the animosity between these two men that anyone watching could sense. The way Lesnar approached that match, the intensity he brought to every moment of the encounter, the genuine aggression he displayed, and the aftermath that followed all suggested that this was more than just entertainment, more than just business, more than just another wrestling angle designed to capture audience attention. The statement became even clearer, more pronounced, and more deliberate years later, during what should have been a celebratory, nostalgic moment for Hogan and his longtime fans. On August 14, 2014, during Hogan's 61st birthday celebration on Raw, Lesnar and Paul Heyman disrupted the festivities, with Lesnar saying, "Party's over Grandpa," which was seen as deeply disrespectful. Lesnar wasn't feuding with Hogan at the time. There was no business reason for him to insert himself into Hogan's birthday celebration, and there was no financial incentive for him to create this confrontation.
Why did I come back to the WWE? This isn't a feel-good moment. This isn't, oh, I missed coming through the curtain. I missed all the fans.
Lesnar's brutal honesty about his motivations set him apart from guys like Hogan. He didn't pretend to be something he wasn't. He didn't chase nostalgia. He didn't need the fans to love him. And ironically, that kind of transparency, it's exactly what makes Brock Lesnar more respected among his peers than Hulk Hogan ever was. But as damaging as Hogan's in-ring politics were, they paled in comparison to the scandal that would shatter his public image completely. The scandals that erased Hulk Hogan. The most devastating blow to Hogan's reputation came in July 2015, when the wrestling world was rocked by revelations that completely destroyed his carefully maintained heroic facade. In July 2015, a leaked sex tape from 2007 revealed Hogan making racist remarks, including using the N-word and expressing disapproval of his daughter dating a black man. The tape captured Hogan saying, "I am a racist," to a point, which wasn't just casual use of racial slurs, but a deliberate, considered statement of deeply held racist beliefs. This wasn't a momentary lapse in judgment or an unfortunate choice of words. This was a clear expression of racist views that completely contradicted the inclusive, heroic image he had cultivated for millions of children worldwide. The immediate consequences were swift and comprehensive. This scandal led WWE to terminate his contract, remove all references to Hogan from their website, including his Hall of Fame listing, merchandise, and downloadable content from video games. The fact that WWE, a company that had built much of its mainstream success on Hogan's popularity, was willing to completely erase him from their history, demonstrates just how serious and damaging these revelations were. For a corporation that had profited enormously from Hogan's image, to take such drastic action shows the depth of their disgust with his true character. But the racist remarks were just the tip of the iceberg. The sex tape controversy that brought these statements to light was itself part of a larger scandal that revealed Hogan's problematic approach to personal relationships and business dealings. The sex tape involved Heather Clem, the estranged wife of radio personality Bubba the Love Sponge, and surfaced online in April 2012, with Gawker Media publishing a clip in October 2012. While Hogan ultimately won his legal battle against Gawker, the case exposed numerous embarrassing details about his personal life and character. The lawsuit concluded on March 18, 2016, with a jury awarding Hogan $115 million in compensatory damages and $25 million in punitive damages, though the case settled for $31 million. Notably, the case was financed by billionaire Peter Thiel, highlighting the complex web of relationships and motivations surrounding the entire controversy. The impact of these personal scandals extended throughout the wrestling community, forcing wrestlers, fans, and industry insiders to confront the reality that one of wrestling's biggest heroes had been living a lie for decades. While some African-American wrestlers like The Rock and Virgil expressed support, others, such as Mark Henry and Booker T, were critical, highlighting a divide within the wrestling community. What makes these revelations particularly devastating is how they expose the systematic nature of Hogan's deception. For decades, he had presented himself as a role model to children around the world, as a hero who stood for positive values, as someone who believed in equality and treating all people with respect and dignity. The discovery that he held such deeply racist views, that he was willing to express such hateful sentiments in private while maintaining a completely different public image, revealed a level of deception that went far beyond typical celebrity image management. But personal controversies were only one aspect of Hogan's toxic legacy. His professional behavior created even more lasting damage to the wrestling industry and the careers of countless wrestlers who had the misfortune of being affected by his systematic selfishness. Hogan's reluctance to take significant bumps in later years, with his leg drop being one of the few moves he would take, made matches like Judgment Day 2002 against The Undertaker slow and lethargic. This approach frustrated younger, more athletic stars who preferred faster-paced wrestling that better showcased their abilities. The long-term impact of this stubborn refusal to adapt or work effectively with younger talent created a bottleneck that prevented the natural evolution of wrestling programming and limited opportunities for innovation within wrestling organizations. The steroid controversies that surrounded Hogan during the early 1990s provide additional insight into his willingness to compromise his integrity when it served his personal interests. Hogan's association with steroid use dates back to the early 1990s, and in 1994, during Vince McMahon's steroid trial, Hogan testified under immunity, admitting to using anabolic steroids since 1976. While Hogan wasn't charged in connection with steroid distribution, his admitted use of performance-enhancing drugs throughout his career added to perceptions of hypocrisy, given his public image as a role model who promoted natural fitness and healthy living to children worldwide. The systematic lies and fabrications that have characterized Hogan's approach to his own biography reveal a pattern of deception that extends far beyond his wrestling character. Hogan has been accused of fabricating or exaggerating stories about his life, including claims about being scouted by MLB with a .714 Little League World Series batting average, being offered bass positions with the Rolling Stones and Metallica, and turning down the lead role in The Wrestler. He also exaggerated Andre the Giant's weight and made various other false claims about his personal accomplishments. During the Gawker trial, he admitted his claimed 10-inch penis size was not true, clarifying he spoke as Hulk Hogan, not Terry Bollea. These fabrications reveal a systematic pattern of dishonesty that extended into every aspect of his public persona. The personal relationships that Hogan has destroyed through his manipulative behavior provide additional evidence of his toxic character. Hogan's marriages and divorces, including accusations of abuse and infidelity, have been widely reported. His third marriage to Jennifer McDaniel ended in 2021, with McDaniel accusing him of physical abuse and an affair with her best friend. These personal controversies reveal a consistent pattern of behavior that prioritizes personal desires over the welfare of others, whether in personal relationships or professional dealings with fellow wrestlers. The ongoing consequences of Hogan's damaged reputation continue to affect his legacy and the wrestling industry's assessment of his contributions. As of 2025, social media discussions continue to highlight Hogan's past controversies, with posts from wrestlers and fans reminding audiences of his racist remarks and WWE firing. Recent developments have continued to highlight the lasting impact of his damaged reputation. A notable example was the cancellation of a planned Hulk Hogan biopic that was initially set to star Chris Hemsworth. While official reasons cited business issues with Netflix, the project's cancellation coincided with continued public scrutiny of Hogan's controversial statements and behavior. The wrestling community's ongoing rejection of Hogan becomes even more understandable when we examine how his behavior affected specific wrestling organizations and individual careers throughout his time in the industry. His systematic approach to protecting his own position at the expense of others wasn't limited to specific time periods or particular organizations. It was a consistent pattern that followed him throughout his career and damaged every wrestling promotion he worked for. In WCW, his political maneuvering and refusal to work effectively with younger talent contributed to storyline disasters and missed opportunities that ultimately damaged the company's long-term viability. His insistence on maintaining creative control over his character and storylines prevented WCW from adapting to changing audience preferences and evolving wrestling styles. In WWE, his early success was built on a foundation of systematic selfishness that prevented other wrestlers from achieving their full potential and limited the company's ability to develop new stars and compelling storylines. Even in his later appearances with TNA and other organizations, reports continued to surface about his problematic behavior, his unrealistic demands, and his unwillingness to work collaboratively with other performers. performers and creative teams. The comprehensive scope of wrestler animosity toward Hogan becomes clear when we examine testimonials and reports from wrestlers across multiple generations and organizations. This isn't about isolated conflicts or personality clashes. It's about a systematic pattern of behavior that has affected virtually everyone who has worked with him. Younger wrestlers who might have benefited from his mentorship and support instead found themselves blocked from opportunities and prevented from advancing their careers. Established wrestlers who should have been able to work collaboratively with him instead found themselves dealing with political maneuvering and systematic undermining of their storylines and character development. Wrestling organizations that should have benefited from his star power and drawing ability instead found themselves dealing with creative limitations, backstage conflicts, and the long-term damage caused by his refusal to help develop new talent and compelling storylines. The financial implications of Hogan's toxic behavior extend far beyond his own compensation and earnings. His systematic approach to blocking other wrestlers' advancement and preventing the development of new stars limited wrestling organizations' ability to build sustainable business models and create long-term revenue streams. By preventing the natural evolution of wrestling programming and the development of new main event talent, Hogan's selfishness created bottlenecks that reduced the overall quality of wrestling entertainment and limited organizations' ability to adapt to changing market conditions and audience preferences. The contrast between Hogan's approach and that of other successful wrestlers who helped build the industry becomes stark when we examine how legitimate stars have used their influence and platform to elevate others and ensure the long-term health of wrestling organizations. This systematic examination of Hogan's toxic legacy provides crucial context for understanding why wrestlers like Brock Lesnar have such contempt for everything he represents and why the wrestling community has increasingly rejected the mythology that protected him for decades. The unfiltered truth and wrestling's ultimate reckoning. Throughout Lesnar's career, spanning multiple decades in various organizations, he has maintained a refreshing honesty about his motivations and perspectives that sets him apart from virtually every other wrestler in the industry, past or present. When he describes his approach to interpersonal relationships, his view of the wrestling business, and his assessment of fellow performers, he does so with a brutal honesty that most people would never dare to express publicly, especially in an industry built on manufactured personas and carefully managed public images.
That's just who I am.
Talk to me about that. What do you mean you don't like people?
I just don't like being around a bunch of people.
This admission might seem harsh, antisocial, or unnecessarily blunt to those accustomed to the sanitized, corporate-approved statements that most wrestlers make in interviews. But it actually reveals something profound, something essential, something fundamentally important about Lesnar's character and why his assessments of other wrestlers carry such enormous weight. He's not trying to win popularity contests, not attempting to maintain false friendships for political reasons, not engaging in the typical networking and relationship management that dominates so much of the wrestling industry. When he says he doesn't like someone, when he expresses negative opinions about fellow wrestlers, it's based on genuine assessment of their character, their behavior, their approach to the business rather than personal gain, political advantage, or financial benefit.
And it's kind of ironic because I can go out in an arena full of 20,000 people and be all right with it, only because I feel like I'm sheltered. I feel like I'm in this dome and I'm protected, you know. But you get me out in public or anywhere around a bunch of people, and I don't do well.
Are you
like
antisocial, or is it I don't want to say a phobia? Is it just
not a phobia? No.
When Lesnar looks at someone like Hulk Hogan, when he evaluates Hogan's career and legacy, when he considers Hogan's impact on the wrestling industry, he sees the absolute antithesis of everything he represents, everything he values, everything he believes wrestling should be. Lesnar's achievements in legitimate athletic competition are undeniable, extraordinary, and unprecedented in their scope and significance. His transition from college wrestling to professional wrestling to mixed martial arts represents one of the most impressive athletic careers in modern sports, a journey that required him to prove himself against real competition with real consequences at every step. Joe Rogan's amazement at Lesnar's accomplishments, his genuine disbelief at what Lesnar achieved in transitioning between different sports, speaks to just how extraordinary his athletic achievements really are and why they provide such credibility to his assessments of other wrestlers.
No one's ever gone from, the way he did it too, and to get in there and beat a guy like Randy, who's, one of the best of all time. Like, Randy was a real pioneer, and Randy was still really at the top of his game back then. It wasn't that, it was just, he was just a freak, just a real freak.
When discussing Lesnar's NFL Combine performance, the numbers are simply staggering, representing athletic ability that places him in a category entirely his own among professional wrestlers. At 6'3" and weighing 283 pounds, Lesnar recorded a 40-yard dash time of 4.7 seconds, jumped 35 inches vertically, achieved a 10-foot standing long jump, and bench pressed 225 pounds for 30 repetitions.
He's hurling almost 300 pounds, 10 feet. He can bench 225 pounds for 30 reps. 225 for 30 reps.
These aren't just impressive numbers. They represent freakish athletic ability, genetic gifts, and physical capabilities that place Lesnar in a category entirely his own among professional wrestlers, athletes, and human beings in general. Hogan's public WCW contracts and lawsuits paint him as greedy and opportunistic, with allegations of holding others down and politicking out of paydays, especially in WCW and TNA. The long-term consequences of this behavior, the lasting impact on wrestling's evolution and development, become apparent when we examine how it affected the overall quality of wrestling programming, the development of new talent, and the industry's ability to adapt to changing audience preferences. Hogan's reluctance to take significant bumps in later years, with his leg drop being one of the few moves he would take, made matches like Judgment Day 2002 against The Undertaker slow and lethargic. This approach frustrated younger, more athletic stars who preferred a faster-paced, high-flying style of wrestling that better showcased their abilities and provided more exciting entertainment for audiences. The impact of this goes beyond just individual matches, beyond specific wrestling events, beyond isolated incidents of poor performance. When the biggest star in wrestling, the performer who draws the most attention and generates the most revenue, refuses to adapt his style, refuses to work with younger talent in meaningful ways, refuses to evolve with changing audience expectations, it creates a bottleneck that prevents the evolution of the business. Other wrestlers are forced to work around these limitations, reducing the overall quality of the product, limiting opportunities for innovation and growth, and preventing wrestling organizations from adapting to changing market conditions and audience preferences. But perhaps the most damaging aspect of Hogan's legacy, the most far-reaching consequence of his systematic selfishness, the most destructive impact of his approach to the wrestling business, is how his behavior contributed to a culture of dishonesty, manipulation, and deception that has plagued wrestling for decades and continues to affect how wrestling organizations operate today. Hogan has been accused of fabricating or exaggerating stories about his life, including claims about being scouted by MLB, being offered positions with major rock bands, and various other accomplishments that have been disputed or disproven. These fabrications, these systematic lies, these deliberate distortions of reality weren't just harmless embellishments designed to enhance his character or make his persona more interesting to wrestling fans. They were part of a systematic pattern of deception that extended into his professional dealings, his business relationships, his interactions with fellow wrestlers, and his approach to the wrestling industry as a whole. When someone is willing to lie about their personal accomplishments, when they systematically distort their own history to make themselves appear more impressive or accomplished than they actually are, it raises serious questions about their trustworthiness in business matters, their reliability as a professional colleague, and their integrity as a human being. The impact of these revelations on the wrestling community, the ongoing consequences for Hogan's reputation and legacy, has been profound, lasting, and increasingly difficult for him to overcome or explain away. As of 2025, social media discussions continue to highlight Hogan's past controversies, with posts from wrestlers and fans reminding audiences of his racist remarks and WWE firing. The fact that these issues continue to resurface, continue to be discussed, and continue to damage his reputation shows that they haven't been forgotten, forgiven, or dismissed by the wrestling community or by wrestling fans in general. What makes Lesnar's perspective particularly valuable, particularly credible, and particularly influential is that he represents a completely different approach to professional wrestling, one based on legitimate athletic achievement, honest dealing, authentic character development, and straightforward business relationships. What are your thoughts on the Lesnar and Hulk controversy? Share your take in the comments below, and don't forget to click the cards on screen for more interesting stories.